Welcome back, my friends. We are here with another amazing guest today on the Lucra Podcast. Today, I am super delighted to introduce you to my friend Yanik Silver. Yanik is the author of Evolved Enterprise and also just an overall successful badass adventurer. So all the things that I absolutely love. We're going to get into some of the details. But Yanik, thank you so much. This is awesome to have you here.
Thanks, Mindy. Yeah, I mean, when you said another amazing guest, I mean, have they all really been amazing?
Yeah, most
Are,
of them,
are there
yes.
some that are just like, you think they're amazing, but maybe they're not?
You
Hopefully,
want to know? I curate this very heavily, and I don't have anybody on this show that I don't know. So yes,
so they
like
are
they're
all
all amazing.
all right. All right, I'm in for it. I just want to make sure that you weren't buttering me up.
I love that you're calling me out on it though, right away from
Just
the
kidding.
get-go. Totally appreciate that. So I have known Yannick for so many years. We go back because you and Sean were really great friends. Back in the day, he went to Necker Island
Yeah.
to see Richard Branson with you. And you've done so many adventurous type things in the course of your career. I would love to know personally, what are you up to now? What exactly are you doing now?
Great question. Well, so I guess I'll give a little vignette from my life recently. So this is maybe, I feel like a year ago or so. We're in Starbucks, whole family, and my wife's like, "So, what are you thinking about?" I'm like, how do we nudge consciousness using the leverage of business and those that have the greatest reach and voices for entrepreneurs? Like, how do we get them? How to get wisdom keepers in front of them so that we can nudge consciousness and create these ripples of impact? My wife's like, "What?" She's like, "I just want to know what you want to drink." What you-
That is so like a typical Yannick answer, I'm sure.
yeah, so that's maybe what I'm most interested in for sure is how do we use business as this lever for good? How do we nudge consciousness using the leverage of business? Which sounds pretty big, but it's happening anyway. Like
Yeah.
we're in this moment. Like I don't know about you, but I have more and more conversations all the time with people about meditation or consciousness. I just got back from the capitalism conference, and so it's happening, and a lot of ancient civilizations also predicted all these things too, which is really exciting to me. It's like looking at the these cycles within cycles. So it's like and there's so much turmoil obviously in the world, but that was also predicted, and
Right.
and so it's this very intriguing spot that we've all decided to come down for.
Yeah, totally an interesting time to play within. On that note of the wildness that is happening in our world today, how do you maintain your equanimity, your balance, your equilibrium in all this crazy stuff is happening and it's really bad, but yet at the same time, all this crazy stuff is happening and it's really good. How do you manage yourself in that state?
Good question. Two ways. One is tapping into that story of, this ascending age of consciousness that this kind of stuff had been predicted or been talked about, and lots of different cultures, lots of different prophecies were very similar in that way of like there's going to be a lot of turmoil, there's going to be a lot of chaos, and then it's going to birth a new world essentially. So it's like if you can stand in that, and so one of my mentors, teachers is this amazing indigenous elder. Her name is Anita Sanchez, and she talks about, anytime that there's this kind of stuff happening, to what her teachers told her was to sing your songs, dance your dances, sit in ceremony, and just continue being. So like it's for me, it's the rituals, it's the practices, right? Like I've been practicing meditation now for probably 11 years. It's the other practices. It's like ceremony, like all that stuff to me is so powerful and probably needed even more so. So finding those moments. I also keep myself on a pretty low media diet is the other
Nice.
thing. That's and being very intentional, right? Like I'm like, all right, do I want to? So I can get sucked into my little Instagram scrolling pretty easily, and then I'm like, oh shit, it was just an hour and a half. But
Exactly.
like, all right, and what happened there? Like, so can we be intentional about what we're doing and where we're focusing our attention? Because our attention is the true currency, right? That's consciousness.
Yeah, 100%. I'd love to hear a little bit. I mean, I know a little bit about your journey, but I'd love for you to share with our audience, because a lot of people that listen to this show, they may have a big dream, they may have a big goal, and they're like, I don't even know how to start this thing. I don't even know what to do for day one, but
Mhm.
I'd love to hear from you, someone that has done, and I feel like you've had so many iterations over the years, but also similar, like they're under the same theme, right? But they're like different ways of maybe pursuing that. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial evolution.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can do. Can I do a screen share on this?
You can do whatever you want to do.
Would anyone see this if I did it?
Well, it's video and audio, so listen up,
I
people.
will. I will
Podcast,
explain
come
to
to the
you.
yes, and come to the YouTube to see what he's talking about.
Yeah. All right. So this could be a great good way of explaining the journey. Hold on. Let's see if I can even get this thing to work. If not, I can. You know what? I'll just explain it. But it is a doodle, so I love doodling. But it's imagine stage one is you jump out of the airplane with and you're building your parachute on the way down, and then like, oh, I have this idea. I think it could work. And then stage two is, all right, I think it's kind of working. We're making some money, we're getting some accolades. Things are happening. And so that's stage two, and it's kind of on the up. It's maybe a little bouncy, whatever. But and then stage three is, hmm, do I really want to be doing this?
This is the
Because
part where it gets interesting.
yeah, stage 3 is like, is this, like I thought I wanted it. Like so many, I have so many conversations all the time. It's been my story. It's been so many stories of entrepreneurs. And if you're just starting out, it might seem like so out of left field where it's like, I just talked to a guy who sold his company for a tremendous amount of money. And he's like, I went through a deep depression because what I thought I wanted was that, but, and then you know, or it's like for me, it was a moment, I call it a cosmic alarm clock. And the cosmic alarm clock can be, it's going to be subtle. It's going to be like kind of like a whisper, and you're going to either hit snooze or you're going to answer it. And then also the universe likes to sort of bonk you on the head harder and harder until you listen. And so the stage three is where so for me it was I'd been in digital marketing space, done pretty well there, teaching people. So I had created my own websites, content, starting with something called instant sales letters. And so there's a lesson in here, which was I asked a question, which was, how do I create a fully automatic website that makes me money while I sleep, is an incredible value to people. So I think your questions really dictate your answers. And so literally at 3 o'clock in the morning, I had the answer of like instant sales letters. And I literally jumped out of bed instead of like what most people might do is like go back to bed because they're like, oh, we'll remember it. I literally jumped out of bed and got to work on it. And that became my first $1 million product eventually. But within a couple months, I was on track to do 6 figures. And people are like, oh, how'd you do that? Could you teach me? So, when you start listening, people will be like kind of telling you what they want. I'm like, yeah, okay, I can help you. So then that turned into another career of helping people take their information and start selling it. And so I've gotten, I think, a pretty good reputation there, which isn't that easy in that space. I was doing really well, driving the hot sports car, all the things that you would look at and be like, oh, all right, he's got it made. And then, but what I asked myself, but I was feeling depressed. And I was like, why? That's so odd. And that's that stage three where you can either make this gigantic leap, and it is truly a leap, or you go back and kind of like your soul dies every single day and you hold on to these golden handcuffs. And so for me, the question was, am I happy? Would I be happy doing what I'm doing 10 years from now? And so it took a bit of journaling. I'm a big journaler. And so in there, I created these 3 circles, and it was a dollar sign, a happy face, and a heart. And I'm like, oh, I'd be most happy hanging out with my buddies who are other entrepreneurs, and we would be doing adventures, and we'd be doing business together in these random places, and we combine it with charity. So it sounded really good, right? Does that sound really good, Mindy?
It sounds amazing. Yes.
Yes, that sounds great. And then $400,000 in, my wife's like, what the hell are you
What are
doing?
you doing over there?
Yeah, and then I had also, like, cut so many of the other things that were making me money before because I didn't feel like they're in full alignment with who I was, and, like, expression of who I was and the impact I can make in the world. And yeah, and so, when things were going sideways, that was a real leap. And I talk a lot about connecting your head, your heart, your higher purpose. And that's so in the Evolved Enterprise book is a bit of this journey of, all right, so the head is your business side, your marketing side, whatever it is. And then the heart is like, what do you want to do in the world to make a difference? But then the higher purpose is like, why are you here? So like what we talked about, like, you came here for a particular reason, especially during these very interesting times.
Yeah.
So like, how do we connect it all together? Like yoga, like how do we bring full alignment? And then we add in some like, happy inner child too. So maybe that's like a random purple mustache or something. So connect your head, your heart, your higher purpose, and this happy inner child. And then it gets interesting. But it also gets very interesting because it's not as straightforward as maybe what it was before. So a lot of times your first entrepreneurial journey is just gonna be like, whatever, I see a need, let me fill this need, or I feel like I can hustle and get something done, or whatever it is. But and then you get into the spot of like, all right, well, what's truly mine to do? And what I'm also intrigued by now, and I'm really excited by, the old paradigm was make a bunch of money at the beginning of your life or this first half of your life, and then give it all away. Right. That this new paradigm, and it's also what's involved enterprise, is like, let's integrate all of it. And again, it's a
No need
little.
to wait for that part.
Yeah, exactly. And but the best part about that is it actually accelerates everything, right? So if you're listening to this and you're like, all right, I have an issue that I want to help solve, right? There's something that happened to me personally or my family or whatever it is, and I can, that's what I want to help make a difference for. Like it doesn't have to be charity, nonprofit as a separate thing, and then the business as a separate thing. Like they can really be interconnected, and it turbocharges everything, which is really exciting.
It totally does. Absolutely. Like doing well and doing good can be synonymous right now, which I really love.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like not only that, but it's like it just drives everything, right? Because it's going to drive revenue. It's going to get, so many. So this is happening from the outside in and the inside out. Like the outside in is people who want to buy things are actually paying attention to what's the purpose of the company,
Right.
what are they doing, what's their mission, and are they actually standing for what they say they're standing for? The other part is like the team, right? From the internal, so inside out is your team wants to work for a company that has a greater purpose and meaning. So this is the perfect time to truly bring all of us to the table. And so if you're kind of sitting on the sidelines thinking about, all right, well, what do I start? Start with what you care about the most, and then think about it. But it still has to be business oriented too. Like it can't just only be a charity, because then you can just go run a nonprofit. But it's got to be a value add. Like what problem are we solving? What value is it creating? I always taught my kids like I got rich by enriching others 10x to 100x in return.
See, I didn't know that like early in my life. I always was like on the let's do good side. And I thought that it actually was like more valiant and noble to be poor in that thing. And then
Mhm.
that's essentially what I created. Like that's what I turned my life into. And I found out that that sucks. Like you can be a really good person and do some good, but like you can't do nearly as much good if you have no money yourself. So I had to rework that for myself.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about, because you use the word leap, like going from maybe one, project or one type of entrepreneurialism to another. And I have found that the transition times can be a little bit daunting. Now, when I started my business back in the day, I didn't even know. I was so naive. I didn't even know what I didn't know. I didn't know all the risks and things that I was taking on. So I was just like going to dive off a cliff.
I
And
didn't
then
either.
and then I landed in bankruptcy court, being evicted, like all these bad things. Now I'm actually in another transitionary time, and now I know like, oh shit, like all of that could happen again. Hopefully not, in that I maybe have learned a few things in the last 16 years. But I want to ask you about those times of shifting or switching or starting something new. Maybe what advice could you give to someone that is like entering into that phase again, whether they know how scary it is or not?
Yeah. Well, I think there's like, well, let me start with two things. One is,
Yeah, I
I was
love when you go, I love when you go to grab something. There's always gonna be something good.
Yeah, so this is like one of my favorite things, and it says, trust the universe has even more in store for you than you can imagine. Trust the divine timing, trust your crazy ideas, trust your wings will grow when you leap, trust your nature, trust you've been encoded with the cosmic alarm clock, trust the signs, symbols, and synchronicities sent to you, trust the co-conspirators catalyzing your conscious evolution, trust the perfect unfolding of your understanding, and trust your divine connections. So I wrote that actually at sunrise on Necker Island. like all this stuff doesn't go away no matter what level of, whatever you're doing, right? So
Yeah.
so many people are like, oh, whatever, when I do this, when I
Once
have
I
my
make it.
yeah. So this was a moment. So, a good friend of both of ours, Joe Polish, we had for many years split the island. I brought half the people, he brought half the people. And then this was the first year that we were doing it ourselves. We really were like leaning into like we want to curate the whole experience and do different things with it. And so I couldn't sleep really, and I woke up early and went and meditated. And this is what came to me in my journal before the very first session. And it was so powerful. Now that I'm thinking about it, so my cousin Sophia, who works with me, I think I might have told her about it. I can't. No, you know what I did is it was at the end of the week. I read that to everybody, and they were like so moved by it, and she recognized how powerful it was, and she actually made it into these plaques that
Oh,
we sent
nice.
everyone, and which was so cool. Because I remember maybe like 2 or 3 years after I went to one of my friend's house, who's incredibly successful. Maybe I don't know. It's got to be a $15 million house or 20 million. I have no idea. It's pretty nice house.
Right.
And I walk in, and the very first thing I see is that plaque on the mantle. So that idea of like trust the universe has even more in store for you than you can imagine. So I really believe that when you make one move forward, the universe responds to you with, let's say, two or three moves towards you. But you got to make that move forward. So many times we're sitting there stuck in, oh well, how's this going to work out, or what, or maybe I'll only do it when whatever, when I
Yeah, because
retire, or
you want to control the situation.
yeah, or when I make X amount, or when the kids move out, like whatever, like every excuse is as good as the rest. But you also, like, if you're truly looking at yourself in your life, you got way more time than you think. Um, you know, and probably that device that's in our hand is a big part of sucking up some of it, or Netflix or whatever. Like, so the other thing I always share was like just go do something, and just that momentum. You're going to learn way more by actually doing, and allowing the marketplace to tell you. Like, so many of us maybe want to be like, oh well, real businesses, we have to go raise whatever, $5 million or $2 million. Like, I was talking to a guy in my Uber or Lyft or whatever the other day, and he was driving me, I don't know, to the airport or something, and he like overheard me talking to my son, who's doing college applications right now, and one of them was about like what's an issue in your community that you can solve through business. And he's like, okay, well, I think I got the perfect person to answer that. So my son calls me, and I'm talking to him about it, and but my driver overhears me, and he's like, yeah, I have this dream of like, I'm a foster kid, and I want to have a thing where we teach foster children how to have skill sets, like fixing cars and doing equine therapy and different things. I'm like, dude, yeah, it's amazing. I'm like, what's stopping you? He's like, well, I think it's going to cost me like 3 to 5 million. I'm like, oh,
Why?
okay,
What?
right. So that's going to be that's his big thing. That's like that's a pretty big obstacle then that's sitting there. And I'm like, okay, well, so I go, well, I don't
Let's talk
always.
about another way.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I love creative solutions, and I love starting, small and seeing what happens. I'm like, do you think that there's any people around here, we're in Nashville, that might have some unused farmland? And he's like, yeah, I live out in the country. He's like, I think I could find some people. I'm like, okay, great. And
Yeah.
do you think that maybe, you could work with an existing nonprofit that helps foster children, maybe bring them in once a week for equine therapy or something like that, or to do the things you're talking about? He's like, yeah, okay, I think I could. And I'm like, are there garages or something? It's like, so like, let's find resources. Like, let's be scrappy. Let's be creative. And so by the end of the trip, he's like, wow, you just changed my perspective on what I could be doing. So thank you.
I freaking
And,
love that so much because like I've had a client that came to me and said, Mindie, I've already invested $10,000 into my course, like getting my course set up. And I'm like,
mhm,
what? Like clearly you didn't learn that from me because I would recommend you sell the thing before you even start the thing.
totally.
I'm
Yep.
like, what are you spending $10,000 on? It takes a computer or a phone and a recording and you talk to them. Like that could be your course to start. You do not need to spend any money to get it
Right.
started.
Yeah, and that was my very, very first sort of business foray was, so I was working for my dad. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. We came over from Russia when I was 3, and my dad started a medical equipment sales and service company. So I got to experience entrepreneurship from the inside. But
Nice.
while my friends are living at the beach, I'm friggin' selling medical equipment. But at the time, I thought it really sucked. But I got a huge head start. Like at 14, I was telemarketing. 16, I was on the road cold calling, and
Wow.
yeah. So, but that kind of sucked. But then one of my doctors, who I sold an entire surgery center to, he gave me a J. Abraham tape and really turned the lights on about direct response marketing. And then I got into like personal growth and transformation. So one of the people there was Earl Nightingale that I really loved, and his whole thing was, if you want to be an expert in anything, just study for 1 hour a day for 3 years. Or for 5 years, you become a world class expert. I'm like, oh, what happens if you do it for 2 years, 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day? And I was just fascinated by that. I could write words on paper or whatever the media was, and have doctors moment, raise their hand and be like, oh, okay, I want to have a meeting with you about this EKG machine, or whatever, this very complicated piece of equipment, or even give us money. Like, so I got to the point where, I was writing copy where we're actually having them pull out their wallets and buy stuff. And I was just fascinated by that process. And so when I started my first little sideline thing, I was working for my father still, but I like these, like, almost like one, I don't know how you call them, like a just a one step on the matrix sort of change. So for me, my customers were doctors, and I had been talking, to all my doctors or whatever, and they kind of realized I was into marketing and I was pretty good at it. They're like, oh, can you help me? And so I had some doctors who wanted more cosmetic patients and more elective patients. And so I started working with them, just consulting. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's not that much leverage in consulting in this case, but so let me create a course. But I didn't spend $10,000 or $20,000 or
Exactly.
$50,000 during my course. I spent basically nothing. I put out a small little ad, and then I wrote the sales letter. So I'm a big believer in, like, write the thing, or sell it first. Like, get to the yes first, and then go deliver on it, or figure out how to deliver on it. And of course, under that whole value that I was talking about, 10x to 100x in value, but it was a $900 program. And I remember I learned this from, like, Dan Kennedy, who, is just an incredible mentor for that information publishing side, and as part of my life. But no, I remember I got that first order for $900, and I was just so excited in the fax machine. And I'm like,
The
oh,
fax machine.
yeah, exactly. See,
But
but
I
but
know, little bit of time ago.
but 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 the lesson here is still the thing, which is, like, put it out first, and
Yes.
then get the money. It creates a little bit of energy. And then what I did is I wrote back a letter to the doctor saying, hey, this is being republished. It'll be available in 30 days. We won't charge your card until then. And I, clocked at 5 o'clock every day from my dad's office, stayed at the office because that's where the computers were, and worked on this program, like, until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning many nights. And then that turned into my first business that started working. I was making like $15,000 a month, and I'm like, all right, I think I'm leaving my dad's business, which was a hard decision because he wanted me to take it over, and I thought I was going to take it over for a while.
Yeah, but I mean, clearly you had a stronger pull toward that next thing, which I think people need to recognize. It's not that that's a bad option, but there was something stronger pulling you toward that.
Yeah, for sure. And again, you'll find these little things will pop up, or these people, who are like, so I remember, so the process was, you're supposed to mail 3 mailings. Like, so I had 10 doctors that raised their hand for this ad that I wrote, to get the letter. So I sent them the letter, got no sales. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I sent out the next notice, and I got no sales. I'm like, oh. And I called up the office, and this woman named Heather Kruger, who you might know, Heather.
I do.
Yeah, so Heather's great. And she had been working for Jeff Paul at the time, and Heather's like, "Oh, honey, just mail the third notice." And she doesn't know me or anything. I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I mailed that out, and I got the first order, and that was where the energy came from. So
Yes,
don't
I
give
love
up
that
on.
story. Yes.
Yeah,
Do not give up on try one, try two, keep going, because oftentimes you're like
right.
that close.
Yeah, and the deadline got shorter and shorter, so there was like a deadline for the book. So there's a real marketing bit to it, but it was
Yes,
like,
urgency helps too.
urgency does help, but getting to that yes, like, something first. I have see so many entrepreneurs, especially first time entrepreneurs, that want the business plan, want the financing, want the whatever, like, want everything right before they go do something. Just go do something, and then you'll figure it out. You'll make it better. It might suck at first, like, I mean, as far as, like, what it is, like you should be slightly embarrassed by it, but it should also deliver tremendous value. Like I'm not saying go rip people off. I'm saying make sure that's 10x to 100x in value, but it might not be as polished or as, as good looking or whatever, but it'll get better. But you can't do it without putting, something out there. And the other technique, it's similar, is like put a stake in the ground. So when I had that idea for Maverick, I had no idea what I was doing. It was going to become this adventure travel thing, and I never did adventure travels. But I'm like, oh, I'm just setting a stake in the ground, which is the date. And I'm like, oh yeah, January 2008, we're going to do this thing, Baja Dune Buggy Racing. I have no idea if one person's coming or whatever. I don't know how I'm going to get my business celebrity. I don't know anything around it, but the date, you have that stake in the ground, and it just forces you to do it.
Yeah, but I would add another piece to that, because this is the way that I've kind of like done things as well, is you might not have known what you're doing. I certainly didn't in most of the things that I've done, but yet it was already who you are. So some of the things that I've done that have become successful over time, it's like I would be going out and doing this thing anyway. I would
Mm.
love it if y'all came and did it with me. Like that'll be even more fun, and come actually pay me to do the things that I already love to do and that I'm already interested in. So I think like with Maverick, that word, right? If anyone says that to me, I think of you. And it's not because of the thing that you created, it's because of like who you are. So in the sense, you were just showing up as yourself and then being like, hey, people, you want to come and play?
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it was. It was like I was scratching my own itch for sure. Of like I wanted this. I was part of other entrepreneurial group, but they didn't hit they were mostly about business, but they didn't have the fun part, and they didn't have the impact part. And so I'm like, oh, we're just gonna mush it all together and see what happens.
Exactly. Like this
And
is what I would like to do. So let's go.
right. Well, yes. And so now, that part of the story where I think I said, I told you about the $400,000 sort of. My wife's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Did I tell you that? I
And
guess,
then
right.
so what happened?
Well, so this is the part to really, like kind of decide, like, are you gonna really do it? So it would have been really easy to go back to what I had been doing before, just go sell some courses, put on, my events or whatever. And those are the golden handcuffs. So that's at that stage 3 moment where you make that giant leap, or you go back to sort of these golden handcuffs. And that's where I think your soul dies a little bit every day. And then and it, everyone, like the stakes are different at every level, right? Like I remember one of my friends heard that story and he's like, oh, yours was 400,000, mine was 4 million. He's like, ha ha ha.
Gosh.
And so, like the universe continues to bonk you on the head harder and harder. It could be financial, it could be health wise, it could be relationship wise, it could be, other things. But I believe in this very benevolent universe. I believe in like that everything is pushing us, nudging us, sometimes smacking us on the head in
Right.
order
Sometimes it's like 2x4 to the face.
right, in order to evolve and to really be the fullest version of who we are, and to show up in that way so that we can help others as well. So for me, it was, yeah, I really had to check in with my why, and the why was not to build an adventure travel company. It was, I got, had to. It was a very difficult time, and a lot of people might be like, "Oh, boohoo," he was, but
Must be nice, Yanik.
yeah, but it was, I ended up selling my Aston Martin, and it's like, and I could have easily, like, I don't know, leased another hot car or whatever, but like to keep up identity and appearances. But I'm like, well, I'm just going to sit with what this is, because so many times our self worth is so connected to our net worth and all these different things, and things are going sideways. And it was like, as a kid, I was a really weird kid, as you might imagine, but I was like into
You're a weird guy now. Nothing has changed.
exactly. I'm just even more weird. But I truly, truly, truly believe like the world needs our weirdness even
Yes,
more so.
100%. Yes.
Yeah. And weird is like it's gotten a bad rap. It's like a bad connotation, but weird comes from like Middle English, like 1400s or something. I'm a copywriter. I love words,
Yeah.
right? So weird is something like path of destiny.
Ooh, is
And
it really?
so,
That's
yeah,
I love
yeah,
I geek out about etymology, so I love that.
yeah, exactly. I love that. Like when you find words, because words are so powerful. It's like our words create our world. Like it truly, truly does. And you can tell so much about somebody, about the words that they use, that starts framing their story, right? So very, very powerful. So where was I on the?
You were a
Oh,
weird kid.
yeah, weird kid, right? So I was into a bunch of stuff like sacred sites and parapsychology, or you name it, UFOs, whatever, as a kid, and I put it all away, went into sort of the marketing space, and then when things are going sideways, I'm like, all right, I feel like I need to go back to I'd been a student of personal growth and transformation for forever, since I was 17, listening to these tapes that my hockey buddies are like, dude, what are these tapes in the car for? I'm like, don't worry, you're not going to like these. And so I just literally went back to like bedrock of like, all right, what makes a good day? What makes a good week? And then starting over in that way. And then like even like that car that I was driving, my little beat up MDX, when I got to the spot where I was like so grateful for it,
Mm.
I was like, oh yeah, I can just throw my paddle boards in here. I could care less that they're all muddy. I could, I don't have to get a detailed time like the Aston, or don't care who the valet is or whatever it is. When I got to that spot, like I knew I had made a pretty big leap. And then the other thing was I started doing, more interesting things. Like I asked my 111-year-old self, what do I need to know? And so I used my left hand, my non-dominant hand, to answer. And the answer was light 1,000 suns who each have the potential to light another 1,000 suns. And so that's when we changed the name of the group to Maverick 1000 instead of Maverick Business Adventures. Really changed also what we were doing. So it used to be $ happy face heart. It became a tree to represent growth, like so growing yourself and growing your business, and then making a difference, and then having some fun together. And but the like all of it just really, really changed the trajectory of what we're doing. And it wasn't adventure travel anymore. It was how do we change the way business is played? So getting into that deeper mission, which then became a lot of the framework and the building blocks for evolved enterprise. Of we went from negative to being solidly in the black, because we tap more into our mission, tap more into what we're doing, and also learn from incredible people like Richard Branson, who obviously well known, but then also very unknown people that had pieces of the puzzle that were around culture or around community or all these different things. So once you tap into that, then it makes a huge difference.
Totally, it does. So there's a question that I ask every single guest on this show, and you actually set it up so perfectly, and you didn't even know this, which is, I love when this happens. But my question is, how do you define wealth? Like we were talking about words and their etymology. How do you define wealth? What does it mean to you?
Mm. So I've been playing around in my journal. I haven't done this one in a while, but I wrote down WELLTH, like wealth, like what how are you truly well? And that to me is the best definition of wealth, right? Like it's like your peace of mind, it's your contentment. Uh I also look at it as, it's funny, in my journal, I keep a journal for many, many years. And in my journal, before I turned 40, I wrote, what would my ideal life be like when I was 40? And it was like, I forgot, I wrote a certain amount in the bank. I wrote like I was doing something, I was hanging out with like a local celebrity entrepreneur, and I forgot there was a couple other things, or this particular car I wanted to drive. And I remember when I turned 40, I turned to that page, I'm like, huh, I guess that didn't quite happen. And then, but
Right.
but then I sat there. I'm like, what do these all actually? What are they related to? Like a certain amount of money in the bank is related to freedom of what do you want to do? Who do you want to do it with? What projects you want to work on? This idea of like this local business celebrity. I was like, something even better showed up. I actually got invited with Branson to go to a safari with Richard. It was like a month after my 40th birthday, and
Nice.
then and then that the card that I had originally wanted ended up being more of a lemon than anything else. So I'm like, again, that like the universe has even more in store for you than you can imagine. And then like there's a better thing, but what that really connected to this idea of the wealth was, what's the intention? Like, so my goals used to be, I want to make $1 million by age 30. I hit that by 31. Then it was like, oh, I guess I should make a bigger goal because that's what everyone teaches you. But I was like, all right, I'm going to be, make $10 million by age 40. But that didn't have the same juice and energy to it as like that first one. But it felt like that's what I should do, because that's what everyone should do, is you want a bigger whatever house or whatever. But and since I didn't hit that, then it was like, all right, well, what's the intention behind all of it? So now it's like, all those intentions that I mentioned, like the freedom and just having unique opportunities and access and all those things. So that's really, to me, these definitions of wealth. And but the biggest one for sure is just that creativity, like working on stuff that you want to work on, and just allowing that to come forth into the world.
Well, you know what's so cool is with your WELLTH, your wealth, that actually is the etymological definition of wealth. It used to mean well-being. So that's
Oh,
like the whole
well,
intention of it. And you're right on with that. So yay, love that. One final question. If people are like, this guy's rad, I want to know more about him. I want to follow what he's up to. I want to see, what he's got going on. Where would you like to send them?
um, well, I'm not incredibly great at social media, but you can go on Instagram and follow me there, Yanik Silver, Yanik Silver. Also, I have, the Evolved Enterprise book, but I have something really cool out, these Cosmic Journey Oracles that
Which
is
you
all.
sent me, and it's amazing.
Oh,
Oh my
good. We
gosh.
should pull a
Yes,
card as our like parting homework assignment maybe for
please
people.
do. Pull one for us and our audience.
Okay, let's do that together. And then that'll be the assignment. So these came out of pure creativity of like, and this is what I love, is like these experiments of just like playing around. And it came from 108 days of journaling and doodling every single day. And
Love it.
then one of my friends is like, "Oh, this is really interesting." And it's like, "I'm going to pay for it to get published." I'm like, "Okay." And then that version, then I got a meeting with Hay House, with Reed Tracy from Hay House, and he's like, "Wow, this is really fascinating. We're going to give you a contract for the book and for a journal and these cards." And I'd always wanted a set of Oracle cards.
That is so
So
awesome. And just for you listeners that don't know what we're talking about, you can get this journal. It's Yanik's journal. So it's got his doodles, it's got his words in there, but also room for you to write stuff in there. It's awesome.
yeah, and it works like an Oracle, or you can go page by page. And that stuff that I was talking about, like these big cycles of time, that's the very last page, talking about these great years, these 26,000 year cycles. All right, what's our intention, Minnie?
Well-being.
Well-being. Okay. So what is something for well-being? Your next, all right, the next thing to really focus on for well-being. All right, tell me when to stop shuffling.
Stop.
Okay. All right, you are galactic starseed blooming. Let me read this to you. So, for well-being, I am galactic starseed blooming. The veil has been lifted to allow you to re-remember your galactic mission here. I am galactic starseed blooming. Our lives are born in the seeds we've planted. Seeds are designed to be abundant and adaptive. The right seeds always bloom when we provide the nourishment, sunlight, and water. So, what seeds have I planted that are ready to bloom? So, that's the prompt. So,
Love.
to connect to our well being, what seeds have I planted that are ready to bloom? And then you'll like this too. So, there's an action item too with each card. So, this is an optional action item. It's called the cosmic checkbox, which is allow yourself 3 nourishing actions today to allow your star seed to bloom. And then the question is, should these be added to your schedule to do more regularly? So, with your well being, what are 3 nourishing actions today to add to allow yourself to bloom more? And then the question and the prompt is, what seeds have I planted that are ready to bloom?
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I'll put you on the spot. Anything coming to you?
Well, what I'm going to do today is stuff that I have already added to my daily. So yes, 100%, but meditation, working out. I actually have 5. Hydrate, meditate, read, write, workout. And those are the things that continue to nourish that well-being, which, oh, by the way, then continue to like contribute to wealth and other things in my life. So I freaking love that. Yanik, I also adore you. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for your experience, and for sharing with my audience today. This was awesome.
My pleasure. Yeah. Thank you.